Welcome to Survival Recaps. Today we will be recapping a film from 2019, titled, Triple Frontier. Enjoy and be sure to subscribe. Let's get into it. The movie starts out with retired military Captain William Miller speaking to a group of soldiers. He tells them a story about an incident where he violently choked a man out at a grocery store just because the man didn't move his car. He wants them to see what the job might create in them, and tells them that even still, it is just one of the symptoms of being a warrior. Next we see Santiago Garcia, also known as Pope, who is also a retired military officer, but now works as an advisor in Colombia. After a standoff with drug cartel, we learn that Santiago is chasing a drug lord by the name of Gabriel Martin Lorea. While raiding one of Lorea's drug houses, a snitch from his team tells Santiago that Lorea is hiding in the jungle, because he doesn't trust the banks with his money. We then hear gunshots coming from the room where the police are detaining Lorea's men. An officer appears to be shooting the suspects in custody, and accusing them of telling fairy tales about who he calls Mr. Lorea. It is here that we realize that the police department is corrupt, and are on the drug lord's payroll. Next we see a woman who was present at the drug house, being arrested by the police and about to be placed in a transport vehicle. Fortunately, she's able to break out of her cuffs and flee. Santiago, who is working with the police department, chases after her, but she escapes. Later, we see Santiago walking comfortably into a house, and we see the woman he was chasing is in the kitchen, unbothered by his presence. It is here that we learn that the woman's name is Yvonne, and she is actually working as an informant for Santiago. She was not supposed to be at the raid earlier, but she went to warn her brother, who also works for Lorea, and they didn't have enough time to escape before the police raided. She now needs Santiago's help getting her brother out of police custody, fearing that they will kill him, if they haven't already. She asks for Santiago's help, but he's not sure he can do anything. Yvonne then tells Santiago that she knows where Lorea and his money is, and she's willing to give him the information in exchange for him helping her rescue her brother. During the conversation it is clear that both Yvonne and Santiago are tired of the corruption in Colombia. And taking down Lorea and his money would be in both of their interests. Next we see Santiago attending one of Miller's speeches. He is here to speak to Miller about the job offer. Miller says if he can get Redfly, also known as Tom, another retired military officer, to agree to the job, then he's in too. When Santiago goes to see Tom, we see that he is divorced and currently working as a realtor. Santiago tells him that he has a job for him, paying $17,000 for a week as a consultant on the Lorea case. Tom initially is not interested because of his family, but after Santiago tells him about the $75 million Lorea is hiding, and that their cut would be 25%, he tells him he will review the case files. Next, backstage of a MMA match, we meet the rest of the gang, Francisco, and William's brother, Ben. All retired military. Everyone is together to discuss the job and to support Ben, who is now an MMA fighter. Santiago approaches Francisco with the job, but he mentions he has a new baby, and also that his pilot license is suspended, due to a slight cocaine violation. Santiago tells him he will not need a license for the job, because he is connected with army forces in South America. Eventually everyone agrees to the job under the conditions that there are no shootouts, and that they are just there to gather information, and act as consultants. When they arrive in Colombia, they immediately get to work casing Lorea's home, the address having been given by Yvonne. The team is communicating through walkie-talkie, while checking the perimeter of the house, looking for security weak points. Miller sees that the positioning of the security cameras is flawed, giving them plenty of blind spots to enter through. As they are watching the house, they notice that Lorea has a wife and children. Francisco tells Santiago that if women and kids are involved, the job is off. Santiago lets them know that the plan actually revolves around the wife and children not being there. The house will have the weakest security when the wife and kids go to church on Sunday morning. Suddenly we see a van pull up to Lorea's gate, and it's Yvonne making her drop off. At the same time, Benny, who's still on the property, realizes that there are ground sensors all around and he's unsure if he tripped one, which would alert Lorea's security, and raise suspicion about Yvonne. Yvonne does make it out okay though. And the team, finished with their detailing, quickly leaves as well. The guys are now having dinner in a restaurant, reminiscing about old times. Tom then asks, what was their deadline to report to the agency with their findings? Santiago suggests that instead of passing the info to the others, the 5 of them could just handle the entire job themselves, taking all of the money. Not just the money, but Santiago is also worried about someone from the foreign forces becoming an informant for Lorea, and messing up the entire operation. On the ride back to the hotel, the team agrees to do the job, only if Yvonne can deliver a getaway van to Lorea's property. The team begins strategizing right away, Tommy estimating that they will have a window of approximately 40 minutes to get in and out. Miller will need to secure a plane through his connections. And Santiago will supply the weapons. It is the next day, and Yvonne has agreed to go to Lorea's house on Sunday to attempt to get a van in for them. In return, she'll receive $2 million, and an escape route for she and her brother. It is Sunday morning. And even though it is raining hard outside, the wife and kids still go to church, accompanied by most of Lorea's security. At the same time, Yvonne pulls up to the gate in her van, with a car trailing behind her. The guard at the gate is confused, but ultimately lets her in. After Yvonne leaves, they enter the house from separate entry points. The goal is to only kill one person, Lorea, and take the money. The guards are to only be restrained. As they enter the kitchen, Tom quickly approaches one guard and puts him in a chokehold. Once unconscious, they put zip ties over his arms and feet. Next, they approach a room where one of the guards might be watching a soccer match. As they are strategizing how to subdue him, a guard approaches them with a gun from the hallway. Francisco shoots the guard in the leg and they tie him up. The team starts rushing to find Lorea, knowing that he knows that someone is in the house now. They head upstairs in search of Lorea and the money. After clearing every room, they are not able to find anything. The team regroups in Lorea's office, trying to figure out where he is. While standing around, Santiago asks if anyone smells anything strange. Francisco says yes, he smells a failure. Santiago ignores him, and says that he smells paint in the room. Remembering the informant's words about Lorea's isolated house being his safe, Santiago begins punching through the wall. It's stacked with money. Each of them starts to punch the wall, finding stacks of money everywhere. Benny pulls the van around and they start putting the money into duffel bags and piling the bags in the van. There is so much money, that they eventually run out of bags, so they start to find things around the house to stack the money in. Checking his watch, Benny asks how they are doing on time. Tom, who seems annoyed by the question, tells him that they have time for a couple more loads. Benny asks if he is sure, but Tom doesn't answer, too busy grabbing money. All the while, they discover there's an entire wall behind them that is also stacked with money. It is clear that they are not going to be able to take all of it. Miller, who was with the van, comes back upstairs to let them know that the van is full and it's time to go. Tom, however, is not ready to go, saying that he isn't going to leave all of that money behind. And then, in a desperate attempt to get everyone to agree with him, Tom then claims he overestimated by 15 minutes, so their 40-minute window was actually a 55-minute window. Miller doesn't listen to Tom and tells everybody that the time is up. The others agree. Before they go, Santiago wants to do a final sweep for Lorea, and they began searching the rooms. While in one of the rooms, a wardrobe dresser starts to move, and we see Lorea come out of a hidden room, firing his gun at them. They return fire and Miller shoots him in the chest. Santiago then enters the hidden room and finishes the job, making sure Lorea was killed. Miller suddenly realizes that he's been shot. The bullet went through his vest. At this point, their time is up, and Santiago suggests that they each just take one duffel bag and exit into the forest, and get Miller a medic. Miller and Tom would rather take their chances on the van. The mission has now gone from a peaceful heist to a death match, as the other guards have returned and they have no choice. They began to make it towards the entrance of the house, killing about 5 of Lorea's men along the way. At the same time, Tom is pouring lighting fluid all over the house. Once the coast is clear, and everyone makes it out of the house, Tom lights the house on fire. As they exit the house, a truck pulls up with 4 of Lorea's men. They shoot 2 of them through the window, and shoot the others after they exit the truck. After they are all dead, they get in the van and leave, picking up Benny, who ran ahead to be the lookout at the front gate. As they exit the property, we see Lorea's family waiting for the clearance from the guards to proceed into their home, which is now full of dead bodies and burning to the ground, making this a very sad moment for the group. The team drives to the plane pickup point. Miller's contact shows up, in a small plane, which worries them. He is then given a duffel bag of money, and he gives a signal to his guy. Suddenly a full-size plane appears, and the guys start to load the plane. While weighing the duffel bags, Francisco estimates that they have about $250 million in cash, leaving everyone shocked. He then goes on to say that due to the weight of the money, the plane cannot support it all. At least not at high altitudes. And because they cut their foreign army connections, they need to take a different route, one that takes them over the Andes Mountains. Tom, of course, doesn't want to leave any of the money behind, and somehow convinces Francisco to go against his better judgment, and try to make it over the mountain with all of the bags of money. Tom, who we are witnessing become more and more dark, then asks what to do about Yvonne, saying that the plane is overweight already, implying that they should just leave her, and her brother. Annoyed with his comments, Santiago reminds him that the plan is still to drop them off in Peru, and they were going to honor it. As the plane takes off, we see that they have piled all the excess bags of money in a bag, and tied it to the bottom of the plane. Once they land in Peru, Tom approaches Yvonne and starts questioning Yvonne in an intimidating manner, to see what she knows. He is worried because she's their only loose end, the only thing tying the group to the murders and the money. Her answers are appropriate and Tom gets back on the plane, still with a bit of an attitude. Santiago approaches Yvonne and gives her and her brother a duffel bag of money. He advises her to get out of South America as soon as possible. She also warns him that it's going to be a lot more people than Lorea's family, looking for him. He tells her he knows. They say their goodbyes and he thanks her for doing everything right, saying she deserves this. They reboard the plane and start their 4-hour trip to a nearby country, where someone will be waiting for them with a boat at the beach. As they reach the Andes, Francisco tries to cross over the lowest point, but he immediately realizes that the plane is not going to make it and he orders them to start throwing money off of the plane. Tom, who is relentlessly greedy at this point, asks if he really wants them to throw millions of dollars into the jungle. Francisco asks him back, does he really want to make it to the ocean, or crash here? They began throwing duffel bags off of the plane, all the while keeping the external bag that they tied to the bottom of the plane. The plane continues to descend, still too heavy. Finally, Francisco tells them that they have to get rid of the bag on the outside or they are going to die. They try to offload the massive bag but the lever isn't working. Benny has to manually disconnect it by using his foot to kick the metal piece that the bag is hooked on. After the bag falls, Benny slips, and is hanging outside of the plane while it starts to crash land. When it gets close enough to the ground, Benny lets go, and is able to make it safely. The others crash land not too far from Benny, and they fortunately survive without any injuries. After reuniting, they realize that they are in a rural residential area, and in the distance, they can see that the locals are already crowded around the duffel bags of money that they dropped. They begin strategizing, because they notice cocaine growing all around, meaning that there could be drug dealers around, increasing the threat level. They arm themselves, and decide that Tom and Santiago will attempt to go and speak peacefully to the locals, while Francisco and the brothers, Miller and Benny, cover them from the distance. Tom and Santiago approach, and Santiago, speaking Spanish, asks the locals to step away from the money, as it isn't theirs. He lies and tells them that they are advisors with the army. One of the locals tells them if they are with the army, then they should call for helicopter support. The man also notices they are not in uniform, and calls them out on it. Tom, also speaking Spanish, notices some of the locals taking money, and he tells the man who appears to be in charge, to order them to stop stealing their property. The local says that they're on their land, and accuses them of being with the DEA. The then crowd starts to grow more hostile, and Tom and Santiago can seize many of them reaching for their weapons. As the locals are yelling and threatening them, Tom starts to shoot, killing 3 of them, as the cries of their friends and family can be heard in the background. Santiago doesn't agree with Tom's actions, asking him why he decided to kill them so quickly. Next we see Santiago speaking to the chief of the village. Tom then appears, bringing a duffel bag of money. Santiago purchases mules from the chief, and gives him money to keep for himself and money to give to the family. As the team heads out of the village, their path is blocked by one of the sons of the men that was killed. Tom apologizes to the boy, and the chief tells the boy to let them pass, as they have paid their debt. The team continues on, each with a mule carrying duffel bags of money. As they are walking through the jungle, Miller asks if they paid for the damage back at the village. Tom tells him they paid $200 for the mules and gave $1 million for the families. Miller then asks Tom which one of them shot first. And Tom lies and says he doesn't know. Santiago, who knows it was Tom who shot first, keeps his secret but gives Miller a look that lets him know that he is not okay with the way Tom has been acting. Miller then says that they need to watch themselves. Santiago quickly agrees, repeating Miller. Tom, who is now irate, asks them what that's supposed to mean, sensing a double meaning. Santiago tells him it just means they need to watch themselves, nothing more, and Tom lets it go. It is now evening time, and pouring down raining. They are resting for the day under a low cliff. They figure it will take them another day and a half to get to the boat. Francisco says they should start a fire for warmth, but Tom reminds him that Lorea's men could be on their tail and a fire would give away their location. With the gravity of the situation mounting, Benny says that they really are dancing with the devil now. Francisco jokingly says that the dance ended when they got off the plane to Colombia, they are now having full intercourse, and they all share a laugh. Benny, thinking about their life's work, their successful missions, and bravery, and he tells them that they were all warriors, and reassures that men like them will always be needed. Francisco stares blankly ahead, and then says that he killed those people, believing if he had been successful at landing the plane, the village incident would not have happened. Miller tells him he didn't kill those people, they all did. They all agree in silence, and rest for the night. It is now the next morning, and the team is hacking their way through the jungle, and walking through the lake with the mules and the money. It's a daunting journey. They then find themselves on a very steep part of the mountain, it's what's called the Smuggler's Trail. The brothers then start to argue, as Benny accuses Miller of pushing him on such a steep pathway. Because they are yelling, Francisco's mule gets spooked and ends up falling off the cliff, carrying the bags of money with it. They look in shock, and then Benny starts laughing. Santiago scolds him, saying that that was a living animal, but Tom lashes out at Santiago, saying who cares about an animal when it could have been one of them that fell. Santiago finally reaches his breaking point with Tom, and starts yelling at him, saying to him it's all his fault that they are even in the situation. As it was Tom, who needed to get as much money as possible. Tom then snaps back, saying that Santiago should have been able to kill Lorea months ago, and they wouldn't even have to be there. Francisco breaks up their spat, and tells them to stay focused. They continue walking, and eventually they have to actually climb part of the mountain. This means they have to let the mules go, and tie the bags of money to a long rope to hoist it up the rocks. Losing the mules means they have added days onto their hike, as they are not willing to let some of the bags of money go. After a long hike, they reach the top and settle down for the night. As they use the many duffel bags of money to rest on, Benny says the temperature is too low and that at this point, they need a fire. Tom is still apprehensive, believing it will give away their location. But they agree. Ben suddenly takes $100 bill out of a bag and burns it. Tom then says that since they don't have enough men to carry all of the money, they might as well be warm. They all start laughing, and then Benny takes an entire stack of money and burns it for the fire. He then goes to grab a suitcase and emptied the entire thing into the fire. As they all sit around laughing uncontrollably. They then rest for the night. It is now the next day and the guys are moving the bags down the side of the mountain. Suddenly, gunshots ring out from the distance, one hit Benny in the shoulder. They arm themselves and take cover. They have snipers after them, out of sight, shooting at them from above. Tom notices that one of the shooters seems focused on him, and says he will distract, while the others try to sneak up behind them. Eventually Tom gets eyes on one of the shooters, taking him out with one shot. Suddenly, the second shooter appears on the ledge above Tom, with Tom's back turned. He shoots Tom in the head without hesitation. Then, Santiago, who was close by, shoots the boy 3 times in the chest, killing him. We now see that it is the son of the village man that Tom killed days ago. Benny goes running to Tom, trying to get him to respond, but he is already dead. Benny starts sobbing, and the other 2 friends sit there in disbelief. Suddenly, Miller, in a calm voice, tells them to get Tom wrapped up, and that they need to keep moving. His brother Benny lashes out at him, accusing him of being heartless. Miller then loses it and starts yelling, saying that it was Benny's fire that gave away their position and got him killed in the first place. The brothers start fighting, and it gets broken up by Santiago and Francisco. Santiago tells them that it wasn't the fire, the boy had been tracking them since they left the village. They then wrap up Tom's body and start to carry him down the hill, along with all of the money bags, even the portion Tom was carrying, saying that they want his family to have it. Their method is to carry as many as they can, walk for a while, and then go back to get the rest of the bags. They plan to do this until they reach the boat. After taking a short break, Miller uses binoculars to look in the distance towards the sea. He realizes they are too far away for him to see anything. Francisco asks how late they are for the boat pickup. Miller says they are 5 days late now. They decide to send Benny to travel the distance there to check for the boat, and report back to them. As he walks away, they tell him to be careful, and to make it back. It's the evening time now and the friends are laying around waiting for Benny. Francisco decides to use this time to tell them that they need to tighten up and stop the bickering. They all agree. Out of the blue, Miller asks the others how many people they think they've killed. Everyone is surprised by the randomness of the question. Francisco answers as many as he had to. Santiago wonders why anyone would want to know. And Miller answers that he's killed 43 people. And when asked about his sleep, he remarks that it is better than it should be. It is the next day, and Benny is back. He confirms that the boat is still a go, and he was able to pay the guy half of the money to wait for them. While he was gone, Benny learns that Lorea's people have ordered the local younger gang members to find and capture them. They are up against 2 or 3 pros, and 20 or so armed teenagers. And there's no way around it, the next town is 100 miles away and they are probably wanted there too. Santiago, who looks like he's just ready for it to be over, says that they should just go through them, meaning kill them. Miller says he is not prepared to take out a group of teenagers, just for bags of money. Santiago then reminds him that Tom died for this money, asking if that's not a good enough reason to fight. Benny steps in, reminding Santiago that Tom didn't die for the money, he died because of the money. Santiago walks away and Miller goes to talk to him. Santiago breaks down, saying that he can't believe he let this happen. Miller tells him that they all signed up with their own free will. Santiago says he thought they could pull this off, and Miller responds that they did think that, and it is for that reason that they got what they deserved. They agree that they will not be killing any of the teenagers. Their plan is to take Tom's wrapped-up body, and only as much money they can carry in their day packs. They decide to throw the other duffel bags of money off of the mountain into a crevice, saying that after snowfall, no one will find it. Francisco says that's a good thing. And they start the journey towards the boat. It is now just before sunrise, and the comrades have been walking all night. They arrive into town and send Benny to go get the boat from their guy. As Benny reaches the pickup point, we can see that there are locals everywhere, drinking and dancing around. Benny swims through a lake and boards his guy's boat without being detected. He starts walking around the boat, looking for the guy, with his gun drawn. He finds the guy in a room, staring straight ahead. Benny gives a quick expression of confusion, and then tells the guy thank you for waiting. The film then switches back to the others, as they slowly make their way through the forest towards the boat. They stop for a second, believing they heard someone. Suddenly, headlights of a car turn on, and we can see a scared teenager pointing a rifle at them. Santiago tells the boy to calm down. The boy, speaking in English, asks what they are carrying in the wrapped bag. They tell him that it is their friend who died. The boy then takes out his phone to call his boss. Francisco gets worried and tells them that he's about to take a shot. Santiago tells him to wait. Approaching him slowly, Santiago is able to grab the gun and they tie him up. However, not before he radioed the others in his gang. Francisco is able to hot-wire the car, and so they untie the boy and send him home before they drive off. Francisco, who is tired of playing games, tells them that if they get to the beach, and Ben isn't there, then he's going to start killing people. Suddenly, they are sideswiped by a car full of teenagers. They come face to face but the kids don't even attempt to shoot them due to fear. Santiago ends up shooting their tires and Francisco pulls off. The men are confused about the encounter and then they can hear the group on the radio that they stole, saying how they had just crashed into them and they are headed their way. They then see 2 more cars approaching, with Santiago providing cover in the back of the truck. Francisco becomes enraged, yelling at Santiago to shoot the driver, but he doesn't listen. Eventually he starts shooting but it doesn't slow them down. The sun is rising at this point and they are now driving through a field, with the 2 trucks right behind them, shooting at them from different angles. As one of them nears the side of their truck, Francisco hits it from the side, causing the other truck to hit a tree, and flip over. They are now driving on the beach, but cannot find Benny. They now have another truck chasing them, making it a total of 2 again. Francisco starts yelling at Santiago again, telling him to just kill them. One of them disappears off-road, and Santiago shoots the other truck's tires out, causing it to flip over. They finally spot Benny, and we now know that everything went fine with the boat guy. Francisco accelerates, driving straight into the ocean. They all jump out of the car into the water and start making their way to the boat, carrying Tom's body and their money. The car that disappeared earlier shows up out of nowhere, and Miller covers everyone, eventually shooting the tires and causing the gang members' truck to flip over. This gave them time to get on the boat and sail away, with faint gunshots being heard in the distance. In the next scene, we see the four of them sitting in a meeting, ready to sign contracts. The lawyer tells them that after her fee, they are left with $5,334,120, cut 5 ways. Which means they each get $1,066,820. Including Tom's family, they just need to give each of their signatures. After pausing for a moment, Miller decides that he doesn't want to keep any of the money for himself, and says to give his portion to Tom's family, before signing the document and walking out. Shortly after, each of the friends decided to give up their portions, putting it all into Tom's family account. While outside, Santiago gives everyone their passports, as it is time for everybody to return home. They all say their goodbyes to Santiago, and we learn that he will not be staying in South America, but that he will be joining Yvonne in Australia, joking that she made out better than anyone else. They share a moment of sadness for Tom, with Miller promising to let his kids know how amazing their father was. As Miller and Santiago say their goodbyes, Miller hands Santiago a piece of paper with geographic coordinates on it, saying that maybe they can do something good with it one day. Santiago, realizing that Miller recorded the location of the money, looks stunned for a while, and then walks off into the crowd. This has been Survival Recaps. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.